Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento. And I'll tell you what, if you've been running your business or trying to start your business for long enough, then you've inevitably found out that kind of everything in life just starts to blend together. The good stuff, the messy stuff, all of this is one big challenge, one big obstacle, and it's all about who can overcome that. And today's expert has such an interesting take on leadership and being an effective, high-performing CEO, because he's someone who understands at the root of all of this is how we are individually, personally, and how we lead our businesses. So I want to tell you about him. He's an incredible guest. His name is Raamon Newman. He's the co-founder and CEO of New Mavericks, a CEO leadership development and business performance improvement consultancy based out of the USA and Australia. He's co-author of the book, The Science of Protection, Making High-Pressure, Impactful Leadership Decisions that protect and enhance you and everyone. Really impactful stuff that him and his co-founder and co-author have written about there. Over the last 25 years, he and his business partner, Paolo D'Angelo, have been globally trusted CEO breakthrough protection partners to over 100 top CEOs and executives of multi-million and billion-dollar in revenue companies. They've enabled these CEOs to remove obstacles in 30 days by having an even more clear, coherent, alert, and settled mind to see the best possibilities and make the best decision that creates and protects the experience they want. Now, on a personal level, Raamon is a bit crazy because he is a former 800-meter runner. He's really accomplished in so many aspects of life. He's been a top 3 nationally ranked track athlete. He's a 2-time national cross-country team winner. He's a 4-time state championship winning rugby player. Yes, he's certainly not from the United States. Raamon comes to us all the way from New Zealand. He's based in Hawaii now, but I'm not going to say anything else. This guy's extraordinary. He's going to give us so much fresh perspective in today's episode. So let's dive straight into my interview with Raamon Newman. All right, Raamon, I'm so excited that you're here. So much that we're going to dive into. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, mate. I've been looking forward to this. We've been scheduled on the calendar for a month or so, and it's just been more and more exciting every day it's got closer. So glad to be here finally.
Heck yeah, you're right. It is. I think it's been almost 2 months that we've been teased. I've had this circled on my calendar as an exciting conversation. Give us your backstory. I teased a little bit about the good side of you, the crazy side of you, but tell listeners your backstory and how you got into all the awesome stuff you're up to now.
Yeah, I didn't expect to be doing that, doing what I'm doing now. I actually wanted to be, my dreams were set going through college. I was doing a commerce degree, University of Auckland, and kind of had my eyes set on investment banking. I thought, wow, that's a high-powered world. Looks like a lot of fun and things like that. And I eventually, had a turn of events, let's say that, as we do in life. And this was around my athletic endeavors because I had this ambition to get into business at some point. But my first ambition, my first purpose was to be a professional athlete. And so I was competitive from the age of 10 right through the age of 20. And I had an Olympic gold medal winning coach who said to me, look, if you keep up your training and your performance and you stay healthy, there's no reason why you can't go to the Olympics. And so when someone like that says something like that to you, instills a lot of belief and a lot of confidence that, wow, maybe I do have the ability to do this. And so I focused on that dream and put in the effort, the training, and I was improving year by year, and I was getting closer to, qualifying for international events. First thing was the World Junior Championships. And so that was my first thing to become a good top nationally ranked national athlete to becoming an international athlete. That was kind of the stepping stone. And so I really put all my eggs in one basket to make that happen, put in the training, put in the work. But I failed in staying healthy and literally burnt out doing that and felt like I'd kind of lost my purpose in life at that point. I got very sick. I had a lot of respiratory problems, a lot of digestive problems. And you talked about your brother, throwing up and stuff like that. Well, that became a reality, not just after the race, but, for about 6 months, had a lot of difficulty with my health. and literally felt like, I was depressed and I'd lost my purpose in life. So I realized after numbing that experience through, we drink more, we eat more, we date whoever seems interested just to kind of distract ourselves from the pain of disappointment. And I realized, well, this is not working. I'm obviously missing something, and we're usually missing some piece of knowledge or awareness. And so I really got sincere about, okay, what do I need to do to correct this? And eventually found out athletes in my training group were recovering through meditation. And I said, well, what's this meditation all about? They said, well, you get a simple mantra that has no meaning, and it helps your mind settle down. And when your mind settles down, then your physiology settles down, and it allows you to release stresses that not even sleep can get rid of. And it's very rejuvenative. And I said, oh, that sounds like that's what I need. And so I went along and I listened to the lecture, and it was a lecture on TM, Transcendental Meditation. There's many different types of meditation out there, but this one was called TM, Transcendental Meditation. And we can talk a little bit about the different types of meditation as we go on. But the first time I learned to transcend and really allow my mind to settle down to its quietest, most settled level, I realized, one, when the mind settles down, it actually becomes more alert. And two, that you're actually having a deeper experience of relaxation. Because I thought I was relaxed. I thought I was a chill guy. But when you actually realize what the mind is capable of in terms of its ability to fathom deeper levels of settledness and awareness, then you just become more awake to what your real potential is. And so I walked out of that meditation literally like feeling like I was walking on the clouds. I wasn't walking on the clouds, obviously, but the contrast between where I was operating at to where this experience took me to was so profound, and it was very blissful, and I wanted more of that bliss. And so I literally flipped the script on being extremely outward and physical to becoming more inward and experiencing this deeper reality. And long story short, it led to me becoming a full-time meditating monk at the age of 25. So I found a program in the Blue Ridge Mountains, North Carolina, a big 7,000 acre campus that a men's campus on one end of the property and a women's campus on the other end of the property. Men and women from all different ethnics and countries and religions would come to this campus just to be able to meditate full-time, 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I was going to commit to doing this for 1 year. And then because I thought, well, the world's not really going to miss me for 1 year, so I can get away with it and I can always, catch up sort of thing. But I needed this experience because I felt like I'd been so outward and disconnected from that true sense of self that I needed this experience to really ground myself again. So after 1 year, I thought, wow, this is a great lifestyle. I'm really enjoying this. Maybe I'll just do another year. So I did another year, and then that rolled into 3 years, then 4 years, and 10 years later, I'm still there doing the same monastic routine of meditating 8 hours a day. And I got to the point where I realized, okay, I feel like I've reset myself and I have a newer purpose in life. But I didn't know what that was. I knew there was something that, I had to kind of integrate from this experience, from my athletic burnout experience and being an athlete, and then flipping the script on this and doing this inner work development. And so I wanted to integrate that back into the world. So the best place that came to my mind to do that was New York City, because New York City is the exact opposite to being in a very silent monastic setting. And I wanted to integrate that silence back into the world. So I go to New York City in 2007, 2008, and decide to do an acting program, a summer acting program for 6 weeks. And that really took that connection to self and brought it out into connection with others, because great acting is all about great connection. And so I did that for 6 weeks and literally fell in love with that experience and decided to do another couple of semesters of acting training and performing in New York City. And it just so happened to be 2007, 2008, when there was a lot of financial turmoil going on in the city and in the world in general. And I was, socializing with people who were working for firms that were getting laid off, and they were uncertain about, where their company was going and whether they had a job or anything like that. And I went, this is strange. How come these very intelligent, very smart leaders and CEOs have caused a financial calamity for themselves and their companies, and contributed to that for the economy. And I realized, they had the same problem that I did as an athlete. They were so focused on that outer development and performance and accomplishing that they weren't taking care of that inner development and that ability to have the right thought at the right time to make the right decision and take care of yourself in that process and make those decisions that not only create progress but also protect you and that progress in the same place. Because it's like we can achieve something, like I achieved something athletically, but then it just crashed and burned. So I felt like it was a zero-sum game of achievement. I'd achieved, but then not achieved. And I hadn't really achieved the outcome that I wanted. And so I realized this taking care of this inner development and protecting that as the basis and foundation for supporting your outer development and progress was just essential. So it kind of woke up a purpose in me to want to support leaders in their inner development as the basis for supporting their outer development. And we'd kind of like started this in a semi-way, my business partner and I, because he was also a full-time meditating monk for 15 years. He was 6 of those years up in the Himalayas. And he's just so happened to come out of the Himalayas about the same time I did. We had no plan to do that. It just happened coincidentally. And he said to me, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm just in New York City doing this acting program to integrate into the world again. And he said, well, how are you going to make money? It's a tough world to make money in acting. And I said, I know. I said, I have no idea what I'm going to do. And he said to me in the next breath, he said, look, well, why don't we just continue to unfold this silent partner idea that we had. We literally are silent partners to business leaders behind the scenes, supporting them on their own development so that they can accomplish and protect what they're doing on the outside. And I said, okay, well, I haven't got any other better offers, so let's start that. So we started kind of networking, connecting with different people to introduce us to CEOs. And the business basically grew out of that. And we've been doing that for the last, what's now 15, 16 years, really supporting CEOs on this level.
Yeah, so many launch points for us just from that overview that you gave to us. But chief among them is, I feel like, so much of leadership, so much of life, so much of business. The older I get, the more I realize that all of these situations are dichotomous. You know, it's both sides of the coin. And what I'm hearing and picturing, it is knowing you as much or as little as I do simultaneously here in today's session, picturing you 10 years as a full-time meditating monk, coming off of, like I said in the intro, I do think you 800-meter runners are a bit crazy. And so you went from that go, go, go. You used the word accomplishment a few times there, which as business leaders, as CEOs, that's chief among our motivators. We love accomplishing things. As a high-level athlete, you loved accomplishing things. Sports puts things into perspective. There's always a scoreboard at the end. We are driven by that. But then on the flip side, you think about meditation. You think about that inward personal development. If we are to truly be leaders, we have to be developed. And I picture that dichotomous situation as, how many CEOs do we always hear say, yeah, my mind is always running. I'm always busy. I thrive off of being busy. And hearing your take on it, it's obviously a fresh perspective on leadership, on what it means to be a chief executive officer. Talk to us about that new age leadership of, be still, be alert, be clear before you take action and lead others.
Yeah, it's a timeless principle that I think has got forgotten over time as we've gone through this modern age of acceleration and all that's going on. And the nature of the mind, I've realized through my experience being an athlete and being a monk, is really to be settled. The mind loves being settled. You know, when we feel just that settled alertness, we feel great. Nothing's a problem. We can handle anything. But when we don't have that, everything's a frustration and an annoyance, and it's just, life's difficult to deal with. You know, everything's a problem. So on one level of reality, there are no problems when we have a settled mind. But when we don't have a settled mind, everything's a problem. So we're trying to get CEOs back to that state where it activates and takes care of the CEO of them. And the CEO of them and CEO of everybody is this prefrontal cortex, right? That's running the executive planning, thinking, decision-making part of ourselves and our lives. And if that's in good tact and that's not tired, fatigued, stressed, overwhelmed, then we're in a good place to make a good decision. We're not coming from desperation or lack. We're just like centered, and we have balanced thinking. And like you say, we're able to see both sides of the coin. And so I feel like, it's becoming more and more obvious to people that the mind, and I'm hearing different numbers bandied around there, but I'm just going to use the number 90%, that 90% of success starts in the mind. And so if we can get this mind in the right place to have that right thought impulse, and that is what's really driving business and success, we believe. Not so much the doing and the busyness, right? Because we all know we can all be busy doing stuff, but not really accomplishing much. And so if we, start the day from a settled place, then it's like we're pulling back the arrow on that bow, right? We can go out there, we can fire all these different arrows, and let's fire this, let's do this, and hopefully something will get us somewhere. But if we actually really come back to ourselves in that settled place, we pull back that arrow, and we really have a better perspective on things, we know where to aim it, and it's got all this energy and power behind it, then that day is going to go and flow that much more effectively, right? And so we're trying to get CEOs into doing that for themselves as the basis for having the right thought at the right time to make the right decision. And that then drives all the action and doing.
Yeah, it almost reminds me of that cliche where we always say, is it ready, fire, aim, or fire, aim, ready? We get that equation wrong so many times. I have to ask you about this because it's something that resonated with me. Gosh, we're probably talking 500 episodes ago on this podcast where we had Bill Connolly on, who, just like you, has lived in Los Angeles, just like me as well. And so Bill was a comedian living in Los Angeles, and he went on this journey where he said, holy cow, LA is the pinnacle of people doing things and making moves. And so he flew out as he was writing his book to middle of nowhere, Tennessee. And it was this small town where so many country stars came from. And he asked someone in that local town, he said, what is it about this town that creates so many country stars, like huge globally known superstars? And the person said to him, he said, well, the difference is that here there's space. There's space to think. There's space to dream. And looking at your life journey, you've gone from the mountains of North Carolina being a full-time monk to New York City. I love how you illustrate the contrast there. Those are opposite extremes of the spectrum. Where does space come into that? What is the gift of space? And obviously we're talking about space could be a million ways. So I really want to hear your thoughts on it. But I'm thinking about those busy CEOs that don't realize even the benefit of space because they're running. Most CEOs are not just running a business. They're running a family. They're running their own lives. They're running travel itineraries. There's so much that's going on there. Talk to us about the role of space, mentally, physically, in life, all the places.
Yeah, I mean, a really great question because space allows us, I think, to be less busy and allows that receiving mechanism to happen better. Like we're not getting in the way of ourselves and having too many thoughts about things, which is not really contributing to what we want to experience. So I think as we allow that settledness in the mind, then naturally we can create space no matter where we are, whether we're in New York City on Wall Street, we're in the busiest situations of our lives, we're still not affected by all that busyness. We still have the space within ourselves to have a clear, coherent thought on what to do next. And I believe that we're all having actually the right thought at the right time, so long as we have an awareness for it. And the way we have an awareness for it is allowing or culturing our mind to be in that settled state no matter what's going on. And so that everybody can, evolve from the situation that they're in and sequentially unfold things with this value of protection, So no matter what's going on, pressures, stress, things like that, we're still in that space where we can just stay in our flow, right? And not be disturbed by things. And I think, I've been in situations, entrepreneurial situations, outside of what I do, and I've given people money and they've been, and it hasn't worked out well, and it's still not working out well. And I'm still giving it a chance. But what I realized is that person wasn't in the right space to receive that money, to protect that money, and to utilize that money to create what they said they were going to create. And so I think when we're in a good space, a good coherent space, then we have this value of truthfulness, we have this value of being responsible, and we have this value of being accountable. And I believe if a CEO and a leader, an entrepreneur has these qualities lively in their awareness, then they can make anything happen, and they can work anything out, and they can work with the right people, and things work out. But when there's a lack of truthfulness, there's a lack of taking responsibility for what you do and say and your role, or there's a lack of accountability to correct things or fulfill things that you said you would, then it's a complete mess, and entrepreneurship doesn't work. But if you've got those three pillars in place, because you've got a developmental capacity to live those qualities, then great things can happen.
Yeah, I love that overview, especially because me thinking about all the leaders I've most respected, whether it's been in sports when I was playing soccer versus in business, it really is about those people, those leaders, those coaches, especially, who are able to find that calm within the chaos. That's why I've always loved that quote: ships don't sink because of the water around them, ships sink because of the water that gets in them. So I love that perspective. Knowing how intentional you are with words, I do want to push you a little bit more on how you use the word protection. I'm so fascinated by that. Obviously, it's the title of your book, The Science of Protection. Where does protection factor into all of this?
Yeah, great question. And the context to this is my business partner is on his exercise bike, and he was listening to Tony Robbins talk about science of achievement, which, as you may know, is a simple principle of focus, massive action, and grace. Having that support from your greater environment to fulfill your desire. And my business partner was thinking about this while he was cycling along and said, yeah, but people do this, and then stuff happens, that really can derail them and throw them off and even collapse a whole business or an economy. And so he thought, well, there needs to be some protection element around that, to support that focus and that massive action and that grace actually working, and not just working for a short term, but working for a long term. And so, we asked one of our CEOs who grew a company from 8 million to over 8 billion. And we said to him, what's more important, achievement or protection? And he said, well, achievement's important, but protection, that's very important, because then you can actually build on what you achieve. And so we said, okay, we went deeper on this. And we said, okay, well, how do we create more protection around our science of achievement, whatever that is for each of us? And so we broke out in the book, these 6 components, and I'll simplify them. They're expressed differently in the different chapters, but I'll simplify them as clarity, coherence, creativity, capacity, being a good catalyst, and having that ability to capitalize. And so we identified these 6 factors as being key from an inner development point of view to support that focus, to support that massive action, to support having that support of life and nature and the market for what you desire. And so the more that these are developed in ourselves, the clarity being the ability to purify all that noise, to have that space, to have that right thought at the right time, having that coherence to unify things in yourself, that dichotomy between yourself or in that conflict you may have in yourself, that conflict or problems, difficulty that you may have with other people or your product or whatever's going on, to create coherence around that. And coherence is kind of the cornerstone of protection, because when something's coherent, it's hard for incoherence and negativity and vices and stress to actually even affect it, right? They've found this in physics. There's a thing called the Meissner effect. And they found that a superconductor that has very coherent magnetic waves will not be disturbed by incoherent magnetic waves around it. And so our brain is like that. And they found that world-class athletes, business leaders, and musicians, when they're performing at their best, making their best decisions, they have a unique style of brain functioning. And they called it global alpha coherence, which is a fancy way of saying the ability to actually see the bigger picture of what's possible and also the finer details on how to sequentially unfold getting to that vision. And so this unique style of brain functioning basically integrates, and we talk about two sides of the coin, it integrates the ability to be very alert and awake and the ability to also be very relaxed and settled at the same time. So it's an integration of these exciter frequencies in the brain they call delta and gamma, which is when we focus on things and we process information off things and through our senses, and the ability to be in that kind of relaxed theta and delta state, right? Which is when we're sleeping and relaxed and that dreaming or imaginative state. And so Global Alpha integrates both those two together, right? And that's what actually meditation, especially a transcending meditation that allows the mind to more fully settle down, will actually wake up the whole brain to function in a Global Alpha state. And that gives you the coherence, which then helps you have that creativity to be able to. And when I talk about creativity, I really bring it back to being truthful, because any good comedian knows that the essence of them being funny is actually they're saying something truthful that everybody knows, but they got a spin on it. And so creativity is all about what is that truthful idea that is coming up in you, and what is also the potential, being truthful about the potential threats and dangers that need to be mitigated in that process. And so being able to creatively get through, that, and having the capacity to handle, whatever growth that you want to take on. Some CEOs have a capacity to run a multi-million-dollar company. Some CEOs have the capacity to run a multi-billion-dollar company. It depends on where your capacity is at or where you want it to grow it to be. And so that's very important. And then those four things really support you being a strong catalyst. And a catalyst is really the ability to have that right inspiring action that is literally sparks things. That's what a catalyst is. It sparks a new reaction, a new way of doing things. And so that can then lead, when you're doing more of that spontaneous right action, is what we call it in that chapter, is it creates good support, it creates good merit, it creates deserving power. You probably heard the saying, we don't always get what we want, but we certainly get what we deserve. And when a team, as wins a championship in soccer, or an athlete wins a race, usually the commentators say, well, they deserved it. They put in the effort, they did all the good work, and that deserving came back to them in the form of a victory. And that's what allows us to capitalize, is that the market just can't deny us that experience of what we desire, because we have had all these prerequisite things in place and created all that good clarity and coherence and creativity, and had that capacity and really took the action, sparked something, and the environment goes, yes, we're going to reward you for your value-giving behavior.
Yeah, so much that as you go through that, it gives us that clarity. I love the fact that all of these 6 pillars that you talked about, they all start with C's: clarity, coherence, capacity, creativity, catalyst, and capitalize. Listeners, obviously all of this stuff is inside of Raamon's book, so you'll definitely hear more about that at the end, and the link will be down below. But Raamon, as you talk about this stuff and you talk about creatively navigating through the obstacles and the dangers along the way, I can't help but think about one of the most natural dangers and obstacles along the way of any business journey, any life journey, is obviously uncertainty. And I feel like that's the elephant in the room that we're always fighting against at various stages, whether we're CEO of one or the CEO of 1 million people in our company. There's always that level of uncertainty. And I also have a feeling, I've dipped my toes into Stoicism, and I love the philosophical belief of, if you're anxious, you're living in the future. If you're sad, you're living in the past. Yep. What's your take, though, on eliminating uncertainty? Because is it a case, actually, I want to ask you, is it a case of eliminating uncertainty, mitigating uncertainty, managing uncertainty? How do we treat uncertainty in these journeys?
My take on that is being comfortable with uncertainty and that ability to trust the unknown. If we knew that everything was going to happen, we would literally be bored. We would literally be bored. So uncertainty has a positive side to it, in that it's kind of like keeps you on your toes and keeps you alert and interested and curious about your future. And I think the more that we are comfortable with the unknown and the more we can be in that field of all possibilities, then naturally that next sequential thing will naturally reveal itself to us in time and awareness, right? If we're not prepared to have a better awareness, then I don't think that uncertainty will continue to be there and it'll become stressful. But if we're always developing a better awareness on things and better awareness in ourselves, then naturally we become, no, I can at least see the next step, right? I may not see the whole thing and there's still uncertainty there, but I can see the next step. My awareness allows me to be that headlight to see what's unfolding. And with the CEO, one of the things that we encourage CEOs to change in their word and the words that they use is to substitute think and feel for believe and know, right? It's just a more powerful place of certainty to be, because we can think and feel a lot, right? But if we can turn that thinking and feeling into like, I just believe, there's a sense of believing. And out of that believing, through that process of believing, it comes into a sense of knowing. And I'm sure you've had this in your experience in developing your premiership talk. You just knew at some point, you didn't have to believe, you just knew you had to develop this business idea. It was a thought impulse that was coming through you, and you thought about it and you felt about it, and then you started to believe in it, and then it just became something you have to do. And that, I feel, is the most powerful way to counteract uncertainty, is to go through that process. You're always going to think and feel, but let it evolve into believing and knowing, right? And then I think when you know, you can already have a sense that you're already going to benefit and evolve from this, right? That it's already happened, because it's already happened in your awareness. It's already happened inside yourself. And so I'll give you one story of our CEO in terms of this. So he had a vision to double the size of his company from 3 to 6 billion through reverse merger acquisition. So his smaller, better performing company acquiring a bigger but less performing company. Goes to major shareholders and says, I know we have to do this because it's the next evolution in what we have to do to grow our company and our market share. And the major shareholders go, no, we don't want to do this because we believe, from our perspective, it's going to ruin the stock price, the performance and culture of the company. So he comes back to us and says, guys, I know we have to do this, but I'm not getting support from my environment, meaning my major shareholders, to be able to do this. And we said, well, look, you can go and intellectually try and debate them and think it through with them and try and really kind of arm twist them into doing it and supporting you. Or you can just get more deeper and clearer on owning this reality inside of yourself, right? Because you believe and know it, but it's not quite strong enough yet, right? Where your environment wants to support you and so you can receive what you need to get this done. And so he said, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let's work on me first. So 3 or 4 weeks go by, we're going deeper on this with him. We're meditating. We're really helping him ground it into every cell of his physiology, that it's already happened from his internal perspective. And so we said, okay, we think you're ready. Let's represent it to them. We helped them with representing it. And the major shareholders go, oh, yeah, let's give this a go. And they're not saying yes to his idea because the idea is good. The idea is right. What they weren't saying yes to was him. They didn't believe he had the capacity to pull it off. It was because he'd never done anything like that before. And because he'd expanded his capacity and had a stronger projection of the reality he wanted to create, because he owned it in every cell, that they go, oh, now this guy, we can believe in this guy. We believe he's got it now. And so that was the first obstacle overcome. The second obstacle was obviously making the deal work, long hours, tight time frames, many no-go hurdles and possibilities for the deal to fall apart, many possibilities for stress just derailing it. And he comes to us, and all this process was a couple of month process. And he says to us, guys, there's a lot going on, but you know what? I feel like I'm the eye of the storm. I feel completely calm and relaxed. And that's when you know that things are going to work out for you, right? When you're in the space of doing something very dynamic, but at the same time, you're very calm and relaxed in that dynamism. And the deal fell into place. The company doubled in size. It's since gone on to being a over $10 billion revenue company. And when we started with this company, it had taken 90 years for this company to finally reach $1 billion in revenue. And in the last 10, 13 years we've been working with them, since 2010, it's basically 10x itself. And that is a testament from our point of view of leadership, the power of leadership, but not just the power of leadership, but the power of leadership developing its mental and emotional capacity to create that growth, right? To have that more of that truthfulness, more of that sense of responsibility and accountability. And so, yeah, that's my take on dealing with uncertainty.
Yeah, gosh, Joe, I love that take. You went so deep with it, and boy, do we love growth stories here on the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. And I'm going to put a slight twist on what you said, because you talk about we don't get what we want, we get what we deserve. I also love, and through that story, I think you really illustrated we don't get what we want, we get what we are. And I think about so many examples here from real life, but one of them is, Raamon, I don't know if you've seen this movie. This was like a classic of my childhood. It was a Disney movie here in the States called Cool Runnings. Have you ever seen Cool Runnings?
Cool Runnings?
Yeah, it's about the 1988 Jamaican bobsled team. And so at one point, one of the bobsledders is in the bathroom with one of the other guys on the team. And this guy's down in the dumps and he's really costing the team, because bobsled, you've got 4 guys sitting in a sled together. You need ultimate teamwork there. And one of them just didn't have that self-confidence. And so the guy took him into the bathroom and he goes, look in the mirror right now. And he goes, what do you see? And the guy was like, oh, I see Junior. That's the guy's name. And his teammate was like, no, tell yourself, say, I see pride, I see power. And so the guy's like, I see pride, I see power. And the guy's like, say it like you mean it now. And so what I heard in your story is exactly that, is you have to say it like you mean it. Because if you just say it, whether you believe it or not just yet, if you start ironing it out, you're going to start believing it. And gosh, does the rest of the world pick up on that. So I love that story that you shared with us.
Yeah, and that's a great story also, of the ability to kind of be the reality that you want to experience before you experience it, and then it becomes more inevitable, and then it becomes more certain. So yeah, it's becoming more and more obvious that, this AI intelligence is great, but just remember that AI would not exist without human consciousness, right? AI has a byproduct of human consciousness. Now, the more we develop this human consciousness and to make our minds stronger and more coherent, then the more we can actually utilize AI in the best way possible. So it's a powerful evolution going on, but never forget the power of your own consciousness in the process. And in fact, I would say that human consciousness is infinitely more powerful than even AI, our mind, our intellect, and our ego, right? Because they're all limited. They're all faculties of ourselves, but they're all limited to some degree. But when we were bringing our awareness to consciousness, then it's a field of all possibilities. And I like to give the iceberg principle, which people kind of sell short on, because they talk about the 1/4 of the iceberg above the water, which is only enabled to be like that because of the 3/4 under the water. But what people usually stop there. So I say the conscious mind, 1/4 above the water, subconscious mind, 3/4 under the water. But where did that iceberg come from in the first place? It came from the ocean. That iceberg would not exist without the unbounded ocean of water and all the intelligence in that water to be able to create that iceberg. So we have to remember that we are a consciousness, and that consciousness is unbounded. It's a field of all possibilities. And the more that we're connected to that, then the more we can bring out greater ideas and entrepreneurship and really express them and really be ourselves.
Whoa, I'll tell you what, I've obviously heard the iceberg principle a million times in life. Never have I heard someone point out the point that you illustrated there about where's the iceberg actually come from. So I love that. Which, Raamon, leads us right into the most difficult part of every episode. I like to give it to the guest because you in some way need to summarize and give listeners an actionable takeaway that they can do, because we talked about so many big topics and such a big invitation from you to live our lives differently, because that's going to transcend into our businesses, into our relationships, into every aspect of it. So what's the one thing that you hope listeners take away, and most importantly, what they actually do after hearing our conversation here today?
So the biggest thing for me, which I mentioned at the top of the show, and you mentioned the word in the process of introducing this, is transcend. Take time to transcend yourself, transcend your body, your mind, your intellect. Get back to that simplest form of awareness, right? Where you can pick up those thoughts, those creative, powerful thoughts at their source. Because there's so many thoughts we can have in life, but if our mind is settled enough, then we'll pick up on that pure thought, that right thought. And that right thought is always evolutionary. It's always loving. It's always beneficial to us. And it's always going to lead to something, even we don't know what it is. And so the ability to transcend and have a technique that allows you to regularly transcend on a systematic basis. I mean, there's many meditation techniques out there. I encourage TM, transcendental meditation, as a way to really pull back that arrow and bow of the mind back to its source, and then really take action from that place. And I think that's the most profound takeaway and wisdom that I've learned is be established in yourself and then perform action. Don't just take action thinking I'm going to realize myself. No, just be yourself first and then take action.
Yeah, really.
Have the silence and then go into activity with that silence.
I love that, because it is really profound advice and wisdom that you shared with us, but it sounds so easy, but it is the thing that really separates people who go on to achieve extraordinary things from people who never get out of their own way. And it is so difficult, even as simple as it sounds. So it really takes a level of intentionality and discipline as well to sit down and actually act on that. So I love that that's where you brought that advice. Definitely a lot of homework for listeners here today. I want to give you the stage because I want people to check out the New Mavericks website. I obviously leverage your website in my own research for today's episode. You've got a lot of awesome videos on there of you talking about your perspectives on leadership and what it means to be a CEO, whether it's on your homepage, your about page. There's so many resources on there. There's just so many topics we didn't even get a chance to dive into today. We didn't even talk about the role of hubris and opening yourself up to answer. So with all of that said, tell listeners, where should they go from here to learn more about you, your work, everything you do at New Mavericks, your book? Lay those links on us.
Yeah, sure. NewMavericks.com is where we hang out. I actually just put a new video that we released last week that really kind of gives a context to where we're coming from. And we call ourselves New Mavericks because in some shape or form, we're all New Mavericks. We're all Maverick in our own way, in our own unique way. And to be an entrepreneur, to be a CEO, to be a leader, you have to have some sort of Maverick quality to yourself. So we believe that helping individuals, develop that mental capacity to own who they are is a very powerful process. So that's where you find out what we're about. There's links to our book there on Amazon. There's an audio book to it as well, ebook, whatever you prefer. And yeah, just find out there. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, that's a great place. For me, I share videos on there. I'm also on Instagram, starting to build out my TikTok and YouTube a bit more because everyone loves video. So that's where we're hanging out.
Yes, listeners, you all know the drill. Check the show notes wherever it is that you're tuning into today's episode. You'll find all those links, including the link to newmavericks.com, which is a really great portal to find Raamon's book, as well as all the other work that they're up to, as well as a link to Raamon's personal LinkedIn, which he's not kidding when he tells you that he shares so many of these thoughts. If you thought this was insightful just in 45 minutes here today, then you're going to want to have this healthy, consistent dose of this, really the new way of thinking about leadership. You say it's time tested, but I do feel like we've lost it along the way. So bringing it back to these principles for us to look inward so that we can better serve people outward, I think is so important. So listeners, check out those links. And Raamon, on behalf of the entire Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur community, thank you so much for joining us and being so generous with all the stories and wisdom that you shared with us here on the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Brian. It's been fantastic. Really enjoyed it.